Welcome to the 2021 Spring Workshop. In this session, we will be providing some important updates, as well as going over some general information about programs included in the consolidated application. We will also provide information and updates about other state programs administered by the Office of Educational Supports. This year, the Spring Workshop is divided into 5 parts. This will allow participants to review the information covered in each part separately if they need to revisit any of the topics. The information covered in each part is as follows. Part 1, Important Updates and General Information. Part 2, Equitable Access Requirements. Part 3, Supplement Not Supplant. Part 4, the new consolidated application, and Part 5, budget detail and approval requirements. Part 1, learning topics. For this part of the Spring Workshop, we will go more in depth about the following topics: requirements for paraprofessionals, the new flexibility for SRSA eligible districts, and special populations unit and foster care updates. Paraprofessionals. We will begin by reviewing the requirements for paraprofessionals. There have been some changes to the testing available for paraprofessionals to demonstrate they are qualified, which we will discuss after we identify what the requirements are for paraprofessionals. General qualification requirements. In general, under Michigan law, paraprofessionals are required to hold a high school diploma or equivalent, regardless of their assignment. The Michigan Department of Education does not issue a certificate or license for paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals providing instructional support in Title I buildings must meet additional requirements beyond a high school diploma. This includes paraprofessionals who do the following. 1. Provide one-on-one tutoring if such tutoring is scheduled at a time when a student would not otherwise receive instruction from a teacher. 2. Assist with classroom management, such as organizing instructional and other materials. 3. Conduct parental involvement activities. 4. Provide instructional assistance in a computer laboratory. 5. Provide support in a library or media center. 6. Act as a translator. And 7. Provide instructional support services under the direct supervision of a teacher. Non-certified personnel may not be given full responsibility for instruction or assessment of students. They may provide complementing, supplementing, or reinforcing instruction or intervention to individuals or small groups of students without the teacher physically being present, but only for a limited period of time, as long as the teacher knows the whereabouts of the aide and the students at all times. The non-certified personnel are never given full responsibility for instruction, and the activities of the non-certified personnel are always under the meaningful direction and supervision of the teacher. We have included a link in the notes for these requirements. Title I qualification requirements. For paraprofessionals working in Title I Part A buildings, the MDE has established qualification requirements which include completing at least 2 years of study at an institution of higher education equal to 60 semester hours, or obtaining an associate's degree or higher, or meeting a rigorous standard of quality demonstrated through passage of an approved formal state academic assessment. Currently, the only MDE approved test for new paraprofessionals is the ETS Parapro assessment. This test can be taken by prospective candidates from their own home rather than having to attend a testing center. More information can be found at www.ets.org/Parapro. The test is administered and monitored using specialized computer software from the candidate's home computer. Interested candidates should first confirm that their computer and testing location will meet the testing requirements, and then they can register and schedule a testing appointment online. Prior tests, which are no longer available in an approved format, include the basic skills component of the Michigan Test for Teacher Certification and the ACT Work Keys with the Work Keys Writing Assessment, not the Business Writing Assessment. Existing paraprofessionals who have taken one of these assessments and achieved an approved passing score would still be considered qualified and do not need to take the ETS Parapro test. For more information, see the Paraprofessional Requirements document linked on the slide. SRSA flexibility, or Small Rural School Achievement flexibility. The SRSA screen will only appear in Nexus for SRSA eligible districts. Alternative Funds Use Authority, or AFUA. All Small Rural School Achievement SRSA eligible districts have flexibility in the use of its Title II Part A and Title IV Part A funds under Section 5211A and C of ESEA. Any district wishing to exercise this option must indicate this in the consolidated application this year. AFUA does not transfer funds from one program to another. Rather, it gives a district more options for spending its Title II Part A and Title IV Part A funds to carry out activities authorized under one or more of the following programs: Title I Part A, Title II Part A, Title III, Title IV Part A, and Title IV Part B. Funds are not actually transferred from one fund to another. SRSA AFUA. This is the Small Rural School Achievement and the Alternate Funding Use Authority. Title II Part A and Title IV Part A funds do not need to be transferred to be used like other program funds. Any district choosing to exercise this option for Title IV Part A funds is relieved of adhering to the spending requirements under Title IV Part A for those funds. This means that the district is not required to meet the $30,000 spending requirements for using 20% of their funds on well-rounded education and 20% on supporting safe and healthy education programs. Districts would also not be limited to spending only 15% of the amount dedicated to supporting the effective use of technology on technology infrastructure. Supplement, not supplant, SNS requirements still apply to the funding streams that are used based on the source of the funds, not the way they are spent. So, if Title II Part A is used flexibly without a transfer to provide Title I Part A services in a Title II budget, the Title II SNS rules would apply, not the Title I Part A rules. To apply the Title I Part A rules, the funds would need to be identified as a transfer and budgeted within a Title I Part A transfer budget.
Greetings, I am Stephanie Holmes Webster, a member of the Special Populations Unit in the Office of Educational Supports. I'm here to review all general updates in our unit. Here is some general information about Section 31A supplemental funding. Section 31A is one source of state supplemental categorical funding specifically for students that meet qualification criteria. Section 31A funding is generated from the previous year's economically disadvantaged pupil count. Appropriate planning should include a team of professionals that intentionally plan to use the funding to improve and support the whole child in the LEA. Annual program evaluations are also a necessary part of maintaining funding to ensure the investment in programming is working effectively for the students it's serving. The intent and purpose of Section 31A funding is to provide instructional and direct non-instructional support services for pupils to achieve regular attendance, ELA proficiency by the end of 3rd grade, math proficiency by the end of 8th grade, and career and college readiness by the end of 11th grade. LEAs that utilize Section 31A funding must adhere to these assurances. LEAs must implement a model of MTSS K-12 or for all the grades that LEA operates. The MTSS model must address literacy, numeracy, and comply with the Read by Grade 3 law. For more complete, up-to-date templates for student identification, COVID memos, the comprehensive legislation for academic year 2021, please access the webpage included here in the link. There were not many changes to the Section 31A legislation for fiscal year 2020. Some key subsections of the legislation are as follows. With the usage of funding for professional learning, the total allocation for use was increased to 7.5% of the LEA's total allocations and can be used to provide research-based professional learning and to implement a coaching model that supports the multi-tier systems of support framework. The professional learning must be aligned to State of Michigan professional learning standards, integrated into district school and classroom practices, and solely related to the implementation of an MTSS model, K-12, early literacy and numeracy, Read by Grade 3 law for leaders, teachers, interventionists, and instructional coaches. Note, professional learning for the coach does not fall under the 7.5% district allocation cap and can be funded out of subsection 13, which is not subject to a cap. For school breakfast, districts should plan at the beginning of the year to use the monies for the school breakfast supplement. Schools that meet the qualifications of 20% or more economically disadvantaged must serve school breakfast. Therefore, Section 31A must be utilized from a penny to $10 per pupil to supplement the school breakfast program. Only districts that are not providing school breakfast programs based on school board approval may be exempt from this provision. CEP schools must also use the penny from $10 per pupil. If you have questions about the school breakfast funding, you'll need to contact the Office of Health and Nutrition Services. LEAs may choose to utilize Section 31A funds to support the at-risk eligible population through school security, must take a preventative, proactive approach to the usage of funds. Not more than 20% of the total allocation can be used for school security for LEAs in which 50% of the pupils in the membership were determined economically disadvantaged. With school-wide reform, the qualification is by building, not by LEA. A building must have at least 40% at-risk eligible pupils in order to utilize Section 31A funds for school-wide reform. A district or public school academy may use the Section 31A funds it receives under this section to implement Tier 1 evidence-based practices and school-wide reforms. This is the 3rd year of the additional language of implementing a Tier 1 evidence-based practice. Instructional and non-instructional services must also be aligned with what is indicated in the district improvement or school improvement plan along with the comprehensive needs assessment. Another change is that school-wide reforms must include parent and community supports, activities, and services, which may include the Pathways to Potential program created by the Department of Health and Human Services. LEA should inquire with any of your Section 31A consultants with any district-specific questions about allowable use of funding with school-wide reform. The Title I Part A neglected and Title I Part D delinquent grants are applied for and allocated to local education agencies, intermediate school districts, and strict discipline academies who provide education programming and oversight of grants for eligible neglected and delinquent institutions. Some of these facilities have school entities or alternative education programs right in the facility that provide supplemental services using these specialized Title I grants. In other instances, students leave the homes or facilities to attend their local district's buildings or programs during the traditional school day and can use these grants to provide tutoring, enrichment, and instructional materials at the facilities for extended day or extended school year educational programming. Locally operated, neglected, and delinquent facilities must meet the definitions in ESSA to be eligible for these grants. Prior to the 2019-20 grant cycle, Title I Part D and Part A allocations were not available until the final allocations were available in the fall, approximately October 1st, and this component of the CONAP was due by the amendment deadline in January. During fiscal year 20 of 2019-20, the MDE Office of Educational Supports team worked hard to get estimated allocations for Title I Part D and Title I Part A neglected grants. Now that the new process of estimated allocations and timelines have been fully implemented for 2 years, fiscal agents will need to continue to collaborate with each facility to submit the Title I Part D and Part A neglected budgets in substantially approvable form at the beginning of the grant cycle to get their obligation date and ensure all federal requirements are being met. More information about the federal requirements will be shared during the General Budgets Requirements section of this workshop. A key component to meet the federal requirements in applying for Title I Part A and D is completing the Title I Part A and D Subpart 2 application for funding formal agreement for each eligible facility. Fiscal agent leadership and facility leadership should collaborate and consult on the student's needs and education program planning using the continuous improvement process. This collaboration should be ongoing throughout the school year. The application formal agreement, which defines in detail the federal grant supplemental education programming, includes questions on how programming meets all legislative requirements and assurances. It must be completed annually and signed by all stakeholders. The final document must be uploaded into the consolidated app during the initial submission. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to contact Don Carmody, Neglected and Delinquent Education Consultant. The Michigan Migrant Education Program is a federally funded program that supports high-quality, comprehensive educational programs for migratory children and youth to help reduce the educational disruptions and other problems that result from repeated moves. The program provides educational and support services to migratory children and youth through both regular school year and summer programs. The programs also support identification and recruitment activities across the state to locate migratory families and inform them of available services. Title I Part C serves migratory children. A migratory child is defined as a child or youth between the ages of birth and 22 who has not completed school and who made a qualifying move in the previous 36 months as a migratory agriculture worker or a migratory fisher, or with or able to join a parent or spouse who is a migratory agriculture worker or a migratory fisher. Title I Part C is a state-run, locally operated program, which means both entities own the responsibility of maintaining the program. As a result, there's a lot of collaboration to ensure the unique needs of migratory students are met. There are several requirements for operating a Title I Part C program. First, MEP programs must design a budget and plan, or DIP, that is consistent with the Local Comprehensive Needs Assessment and the MyMIP CNA and State Service Delivery Plan, SDP, plus adhere to the supplement, not supplant rule. Second, MEPs must ensure coordination of local, state, and federal services and programs, plus between other districts and states. Third, MEPs must establish and maintain an effective recruitment plan, which includes recruitment and data entry staff. And fourth, MEPs must establish a local parent advisory council and actively conduct outreach to parents. A parent leadership team must also be formed from local migratory parents, which will participate in regional and statewide parent meetings. Fiscal requirements for Title I C include a 15% administrative indirect cap, a minimum 1% designated for parent outreach spending, which includes local, regional, and state level parent leadership meetings, and a 60% minimum for line items directly impacting student achievement. This does not include program administration, recruitment, data entry, etc. As a reminder, each LEA must have a local McKinney-Vento homeless liaison identified and trained. The contact information for all liaisons must be entered into the EEM and kept up to date. If there is a change in staff for this position, the EEM must be updated at that time. Two great resources are linked on the slide to help local districts select and support the local McKinney-Vento liaison. The first resource provides considerations for selecting a district and, if need be, a building level liaison. The second is a resource tool published by the National Center for Homeless Education that walks liaisons through the duties associated with this important role. Beginning in February of this year, MDE, along with the support of the McKinney-Vento grant coordinators across the state, began a soft rollout of a new training platform. The prior platform, commonly referred to as Kickstand, will be retired as of August 1st, 2021. The training previously provided under Kickstand has been updated with improved engagement activities. The new platform is found at the link on the slide, michigan.mckinney-vento.org. The updated training has been condensed down to approximately 8 hours needed for completion. All local McKinney-Vento homeless liaisons must register in the training platform and report once they have completed training in Kickstand. All LEAs are required to meet collaboratively with their homeless liaison and reserve funds to provide services for students experiencing homelessness. Services may include things such as academic supports to supplement those already available to all students under Section 31A and/or Title I Part A. Such supports will be budgeted under Function Code 125. Note that academic supports should be the primary focus for the set-aside, and most districts should be budgeting some portion of their set-aside in this area unless all students experiencing homelessness are maintaining high levels of academic achievement and/or services available to all students as part of other programs are adequately meeting the unique academic needs of students experiencing homelessness. The excess cost of transportation, which would allow students to remain in their school of origin, is also an allowable use of the reservation. This cost would be budgeted under Function Code 271. The reservation can also be used to address welfare needs of students experiencing homelessness in a way that would support participation in the academic program. This would include providing support such as gym clothing, personal academic supplies, etc. These costs will be budgeted under Function Code 361. Finally, the reservation can be used to cover the cost of a homeless liaison to act as an advocate for students and families experiencing homelessness. These costs will be budgeted under Function Code 226. Note that we are no longer considering the homeless liaison to be a part of the Title I Part A admin costs, as their role is more in line with providing services than overall administration of the grant. As such, the cost for the homeless liaison should be included with the homeless reservation and budgeted within the district program budget rather than including it with any administrative reservation and budgeting it within a district administrative budget. Similar to the requirements for students experiencing homelessness, each LEA that receives Title I Part A funds must have a designated foster care liaison listed in the Educational Entity Master, or the EEM. At the LEA level, this role can be the same as a homeless liaison as long as the capacity to meet all requirements for both roles is reasonable. The LEA foster care liaison should have authority to run MSDS reports to ensure timely foster student identification. Foster student identification can only be generated through the MSDS student roster report. It is allowable to reserve Title I funds at the district level to provide support specific to students experiencing foster care. In particular, LEAs are able to set aside Title I Part A funds to cover additional costs for transportation to and from the school of origin if remaining in the school of origin is determined to be in the best interest of the student. This reservation will be specified on the Title I Part A reservation screen and included in the line for other district reservations. LEAs are responsible for paying for the average cost of transportation for students. LEAs must collaborate with the Department of Health and Human Services to determine responsibility for any additional cost to maintain enrollment in the school of origin, and under some circumstances, DHHS may cover a portion of the cost. This is determined on a case-by-case basis. The definition of English learner is found in the Elementary and Secondary Act as amended by ESSA. It states that the 4 elements listed on the bullets on the slide must be true for a student to qualify as an EL. We use the home language survey to determine if the student or their family has a primary language other than English. If that is the case, we give them a screener, such as the WIDA screener or the kindergarten WAPT, to determine if they need assistance attaining the state standards or successfully participating in society due to their English language proficiency. There are 2 main funding sources that are directly focused on English learners. Title III funds are designed to be used in supplement of general funds and other supplemental funds. These funds are designed to provide supplemental academic supports to ELs and their families. The state funds that are specific for ELs are Section 41 funds. These are targeted to the students with more basic levels of English proficiency and allow districts to provide additional supports to the identified English learner students. In 1981, Castaneda versus Picard required that after a trial period, all EL programs must be evaluated for effectiveness. ESSA requires that the evaluations be completed on a biennial basis. In Michigan, that means we submit our EL program evaluation on odd-numbered years. Guidance will be forthcoming with more specifics, but generally, districts should start planning for the following. 1. If you are granted Section 41 funds, plan to use the embedded questions in the Section 41 report that is due July 15, 2021 as your evaluation. Number 2, if you didn't apply for Section 41 funds, but you did apply for Title III EL funds, please plan to upload your program evaluation to your 2021-22 Consolidated App by July 1st, 2021. If you didn't apply for either of the funds, complete your EL program evaluation and keep it on file in your district. You will be asked for this during on-site review. Are you new to being the EL coordinator? Do you know someone who will be taking over EL next year that has never done the job before? Please encourage them to sign up for the new EL Coordinators Collaborative. We meet virtually for 90 minutes each month and provide a monthly to-do list with real examples of how folks are getting the job done correctly. We are taking registrations now. Sign up at the bit.ly found on the slide. There is no cost to participate. ESSA defines immigrant students as those that are aged 3 to 21, enrolled in a primary or secondary school, who are not born in any U.S. state or Puerto Rico, and who has not completed more than 3 full academic years in any U.S. schools. Please note that this has nothing to do with the languages that the students speak. Districts must screen every newly enrolled student using the 2 questions listed on the slide. Immigrant status only has to do with where a student was born and how long they have been attending U.S. schools. This is totally independent of the English learner identification process. Many districts misconstrue the identification of immigrant students, and therefore we find many mistakes on enrollment packets. Please ensure that any questions related to Social Security numbers, immigration status or refugee resettlement agency, country of immigration and birth, citizenship status of any kind are removed from registration packets immediately. You should only be asking the 2 questions from the prior slide. Additionally, if a student reports being born outside of the U.S., it is imperative that you interview the family to determine if the student has left and returned to the U.S. We need to add up the months of the student's attendance in U.S. schools. Once you hit a cumulative total of 30 months, the student can no longer be identified as immigrant. Also, please remember that it's up to the district to de-identify immigrant students in your local student information systems when they hit the 30-month mark in U.S. schools. Immigrant funds are unique in the fact that they are only available at amendment time. We don't offer estimated allocations, nor do we have preliminary allocations. We only post final allocations at amendment time on our program allocations page, and we send out a memo to all agencies. Please mark your calendars for December to check to see if you are eligible for these funds. As a reminder, foreign exchange students qualify as immigrant students and should be coded as such in the district's local student information system. Also, any student born abroad that is entering kindergarten should be marked as immigrant. We start counting time in U.S. schools from the date of the first enrollment as early as kindergarten. Preschool attendance does not count.